Hi, this is John Rowell for the Rowell Report. Today is Saturday, December 13th, 2025, and many cities throughout Ukraine have been subjected to massive drone and missile attacks. One such city is Odessa, and Odessa has been suffering major electrical blackouts after the recent attacks. And even worse, water has been cut off to many of the residents of Odessa. So, anyway, here is an article about the power outage from Reuters, and it says Ukraine's southern port city of Odessa and the surrounding region suffered major blackouts on Saturday after a large overnight Russian attack on the power grid that left more than 1 million households without power. So anyway, right away we see the first paragraph of this article talk about households. It doesn't actually mention about military facilities, military bases, about trains being used for transport of military personnel and equipment. Doesn't talk about the factories that are being run by electricity. So for Western media, any attack on a power grid in Ukraine is essentially an attack on civilians. It's almost as if there's no war going on. There's no military effort in Ukraine. There's no military industrial complex. There's no use of trains for moving soldiers and military equipment, etc. So anyway, I found this very curious that after so much time with Russia hitting military targets and announcing that it's only targeting military targets, then the Western media would only mention civilian targets. So this is quite the contrast between what one side is saying and the other side is saying. But obviously there's a war going on. There's military targets. There's a military industry that's trying to lift itself up in Ukraine. So they require power, they require resources, they require all kinds of things. So all this unfortunately means that for the Ukrainian civilian, they will continue to suffer these outages, whether it's power or water. And now that we're in the wintertime, power is extremely important to have heating. For most modern homes, they don't have stoves anymore. They don't have fireplaces. So they need electricity to keep the heat on. And of course, water is essential for life. So if you lose water, you're kind of out of luck. So anyway, this is Reuters, and I move on to this other media outlet, Al Jazeera, and this also toes basically the same line in this conflict, that Russia is only attacking civilian infrastructure, and the results of these attacks is suffering by the civilians in Ukraine. So I again find this a use and reuse of this same idea that there's no war going on in Ukraine, there's no soldiers being transported, there's no military equipment that's being produced or shipped, there's no use of trains to move soldiers and equipment. So anyway, I find this whole focus on trying to say basically that Russia is a terrorist country to be laughable. But anyway, here we have a couple of lines from this Al Jazeera article. I'll read them off. Russian attacks have left thousands without power in Ukraine, while a drone attack killed 2 people in Russia as the United States-led peace talks on ending the war, deep in its 4th year, press on. So, again, the article from Al Jazeera only mentions thousands. You would suppose that they would be civilians without power in Ukraine. So really, what's the game? What's going on? We look further down this article. A comment from Zelensky. It is important that everyone now sees what Russia is doing, for this is clearly not about ending the war. They still aim to destroy our state, inflict maximum pain on our people. So I guess there's no war going on. There's no military industrial complex. There's no transportation of military equipment or soldiers. So there is no military in Ukraine, basically, is what you're telling me. And all the attacks of Russia are against civilian infrastructure. So again, this is all laughable. And we've seen this time and time again from Western media, but especially from the Ukrainian media. This is all propaganda. So if you are an individual and you receive news from CNN, Fox News, PBS, NPR, BBC, Sky News, who else? The Telegraph. This is all propaganda. And so you have to be able to distinguish the propaganda from the truth. And that's why I'm here, to try to help in that process. But anyway, here's another paragraph from that article. Kiev and its Western allies have repeatedly said Russia is trying to cripple the Ukraine power grid and deny civilians access to heat, light, and running water. So, again, is there a war going on? Is there a military-industrial complex? Is there transportation for soldiers, for military equipment? Are there companies making chips, making drones, making missiles, trying to make armored vehicles? Doesn't seem like they're getting much success in that area. But anyway, the point is that it's all focusing on the narrative on Russia trying to hurt civilians. Russia is a terrorist state, is what they are telling you. So when you read that, you know right away that this is propaganda. And so then you try to see the narrative that is behind that. But it is evident that there is water shortages in a city like Odessa that was hit in these missile and drone attacks. And so, but they've had those before. So anyway, it shouldn't be too long before Ukraine reestablishes a service of water to the households and to restore the electricity. The important thing to remember is that Russia is focusing on the military targets, and unfortunately many military targets are placed within heavily populated urban areas. Also, Ukraine uses energy, whether it's electricity or other kinds of energy, to run their industry and to run their war machine. And so Russia has no choice but to take out this electrical infrastructure. And so this is the result, as you see on the screen: an individual filling a jug of water to take home because they don't have any water service. And so anyway, I think it's pretty obvious that Western media will never give us an honest story of what's going on. They will never list the actual targets that Russia had for its recent attacks, whether with drones or missiles. It'll just continue to focus on the consequences for the civilians. Of course, there will be consequences because when you cut off electricity for the military industrial complex, for the trains, for the factories to make drones, etc., you also turn the electricity off for civilians. So anyway, it's an unfortunate consequence, but I think it's important to be able to distinguish and understand. And so, and this will continue as Ukraine continues to ramp up its terrorist campaign in Russia. Russia will continue to ramp up its airstrikes and drone attacks. So, anyway, that is my report for today, Saturday, December 13th. If you have any comments to make, please do so below. And I'll leave links to these resources in the video description. And if you like this video, please hit the like button, share, and subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you back at the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.